30 years ago the contentious Us photograph Robert Mapplethorpe had a main trade show at the Whitney Museum in Manhattan. It concluded several of his trademark obvious shots of nudes, and it was confirmed how in spite or since of the debate, same D be a celebrity of the art planet. A few months after he was corpse, Mapplethorpe set out to upheaval America, yet his sibling Nancy recalls a completely common infancy fair external New York. Nancy Rooney has consumable nearly all her lifetime on Length Isle. As Nancy Mapplethorpe, she grew up in Flower Garden, the neighborhood on the fringes of New York town that her parents excited to in 1949. Nancy was the first of 6 family. My sibling Robert was just little while we excited to a mark new building on a mark new unit. We did which youthful guys did in the previous 50s, we jumped cord and play stickball and marbles. It was a completely common infancy. Ours dad Harry was type of stringent and he treated as an engineering at Underwriters Laboratories in Brooklyn. Love clock mechanism same DB household at 6 o'clock and we'd all sit downward and include lunch along. It was the largest regular and without incident lifetime you can think. It was a big consider while in the summer our grandma took us on the boat train in Rabbit Isle for the amusements down there. Nancy thinks in retrospective she and Robert were ever nearest. Robert was ever tantalizing me and our sibling Richard, but he had a large feeling of humor. You could see he was smart. While he left Ward High School, Robert said his parents he requested to research artwork. I recall our dad proverb, which's the use of how. One day thou'll requirement a carrier and perhaps requirement to supporting a household and art win t assist one beat. Ultimately Harry coordinated to supporting his son if he investigated art at the Pratt Institution in Brooklyn, wherever same D undertaken his own extent in mechanical engineering. Nancy remembers, following a year, Robert went to dwell close the school and house while his bonds to the household modified. One day in a time Robert and Patty would get the boat train out of the town and go to see my parents. I recall my dad would be confused since Robert would be dressed all in dark and Patty, who was ever beautiful, would be dressed in ways you wouldn't see in Flower Garden. Patty explainable she was a lyricist and she, though wrote a slight epic for my mom, I desire I yet had it. Robert driven her to my siblings' marriage in 1970 and I recall Patty proverb, so, our lifetime in the town is various to your and you wouldn't know. But down there wasn't whatever unpleasant in how. Patty was fair expressive the true. At one spot the household were said Robert and Patty had marital. My mom would email her anniversary date presents aimed to Patty Mapplethorpe. But my dad sharpened out down there were no pictures of the right and how we'd seen no wedding license. Of year it had never happened. By the 1970s, Robert had implemented he was homosexual. It was later, too much, how eventually he took up the middle that would do him renowned. His enemy told his photographic of the man naked, lot of them very obvious, had proposed an lightweight way to celeb. He preferred the dark man constitution over all, several mind his job skilled but exploiting. His admirers sharpened out how he manufactured unforgettable images of female and flowers, too much. By the 1980s his job was marketing for top prices. Robert had found the utility of social indignation. Yet Nancy, to whom he had been so shut, knew slight of the planet Robert had introduced. This at first period I implemented my slight sibling was proper so known was while I was in a wait chamber in a dental surgeon's office space in my child. Down there was a little chunk on him in a ammunition depot. My big worry about was ever how he was take drugs. Human beings say to me you must include named Robert was gay but frankly I didn't believe one bit on how, it was the drugs I mind on. Present it would be lightweight to discover an painter's job on the internet. But Nancy didn't go in art circles and down there was no web. So it was just to the end of Robert's lifetime she saw his pictures at all. By later we knew how Robert was patient in AIDS. How was while eventually we reconnected. He guessed me in the town to go to his attic center, that I and my parents had never been to. It was a nice attic imbued in art and vases. Or it was just later I told to him, Robert, are you homosexual? And he told, yes Nan, I am. And I told, since I was never very certainly. Nancy says how was the spot she began to aware her sibling. Yet it was at the end of his lifetime and he was patient and I think felt so poor. I sense bad while I believe on it currently. Quickly following how, in July 1988, the retrospectively at the Whitney Museum of Art outdoor to proclaim. For all Roberts obviously lack public health, Nancy enjoyed the night. I saw which a successful he was, although the human beings nearby Robert were a bit various of our length aisle parenting. Several of his photographic did upheaval me. Personality portrait in stick is so known now but it was a few moments up I though implemented it was Robert steadfast out at me in a stick in his buttstock. But I was so joyful I visited how overnight. Robert sorrowfully dead of AIDS in March 1989, elderly 42. 2 years ago the document Mapplethorpe, see at the pictures driven Robert's job to a new general, one that can discover images on the internet far more than obvious rather than whatever he created. Andy Timoner's biographical film, starring Matt Blacksmith, is waiting produce. Nancy is impressed how human beings are yet concerned in her sibling. Robert's so known all above the planet, that while we were guys in the 1950s I couldn't perhaps include imaginary. Though following 30 year I yet miss him but I ever believe of him in so lot honor.